Between the USA and the UK, the two most sophisticated, advanced civilizations, there are 27 million persons addicted to drugs. There are 89 million people addicted to alcohol. There are 106 million persons addicted to cigarette smoking. 21 million of those die every year from diseases related to their addiction to cigarette smoking. 24 million women prostitute themselves legally with licenses. 8 murders or homicides are committed every 19 minutes, and 2 rapes are committed every 7 minutes. And there are 3 robberies every 59 seconds. There are 257,000 children that are legally or illegally aborted. That is, 257,000 children are killed in the womb by license. 21 million children are born every year out of wedlock who do not know their mothers and fathers, or who do not know whom they are fathered by. 2.8 million suicides every year of human beings who find no reason to live. 275,000 persons are locked up in their prison industrial complexes. And today, the prisons are built as industries. They are no longer built simply to house and to reform criminals. They are built as industries, and major conglomerates compete with one another for the contracts to build and to administrate these prison complexes, because they have found that the labor from prisoners are just like the labor in South America or India and other places. They can have people locked up for 20 years, 30 years, or for life, and have them to work for 53 cents an hour. So it makes sense to build prisons, and it makes sense to give people life in prison. These statistics are shocking. They are depressing, and they are evident themselves that such societies do not qualify to be the models or the champions for the source of bringing peace to the world. With these kinds of social problems inside of their own boundaries, inside of their own governments, in their own institutions, how can they bring peace to the world? It doesn't make sense.
Welcome, viewers, to this episode on Sky Views. My name is Mufti Yusuf Abrabji. I'll be interviewing my guest today, who will be introducing himself from the United States of America. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Could you please introduce to your viewers who are you, or who you are?
Well, brother Mufti, you're my brother in Islam, but if you just want me to introduce myself, I don't mind doing that. Dear brothers and sisters, this is your brother Sheikh Khalid Yasin, and as he mentioned, this is an episode of Sky Views. Sky Views are my views, and I'm saying this because it's a program that we do. And you know, when it's like my views, my spin, my take on things, then I'm fully responsible for what I say. But since I'm here, I was asked by my brother Mufti on behalf of the good people of Holland that he wanted to ask a few questions. So now that I've finished about me, let's turn it back over to Mufti.
I understand you came to give a lecture quite recently, some few days ago. What is it about? Could you please throw a light on what is it about and what?
Well, the broad topic of what we spoke about, or the broad theme, is Islam in the 21st century. And it's very important, you know, in the 21st century. You know, because Islam spans all the way back to the Quran, when the Quran was revealed, and all the way back to the time when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during that period. And that's like 1,500 years ago. So the sources are there, no doubt about it. And that's the sources that all Muslims follow. But we live in the 21st century. So my job, or my theme as I'm traveling around the world, is to put Islam, the Quran, the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the phenomena of the Islamic system, put that within the context of the 21st century. Now, the other night, I was invited by an organization called the Islamic Propagation Center International. You know, people who are upholding the legacy of Dr. or Sheikh Ahmed Deedat, the late Sheikh Ahmed Deedat. You know, a legacy in terms of dawah or presenting Islam in the 21st century. Like, he's the granddaddy. He is a legacy. I mean, if just put in the word Sheikh Ahmed Deedat, and there's nobody that can fill those shoes. So he kicked it off. He set it up in the 21st century in the Western world, primarily removing misconceptions about Islam and Muslims, and convincing Christians, and more in particular than any other group, convincing them that, number one, Islam is connected to Christianity, that Muhammad ﷺ is related to Jesus Christ, and therefore the Quran as a scripture is also connected, to the Christian scriptures or the Bibles. He did that. Secondly, clarifying Islam and what it is, and then arguing against the people who are saying things about Islam which they have no right to say, and then also arguing or talking with Christians who are putting forward a message which is really not connected to Jesus Christ or connected, to the message of Jesus Christ. So that was what Sheikh Ahmed Deedat did, and he did it. Nobody did it better. And as one of his students, my job is to sort of like not repeat what he did, but even put that within the context of the society that we live in right now, the issues that are happening with Muslims and non-Muslims. And I think it was Thursday night, I forgot the name of the venue where we were at, but we spoke about identity crisis. You know, so I mean, this is a real crisis, a real diagnosis that Muslims, especially young Muslims, are going through. I mean, especially young Muslims who are living in the Western countries where they are minorities. So they're going through this identity crisis, who they are. What are they supposed to do? The accusations made against Islam and Muslims. The misconceptions that people have and what is popularly called Islamophobia. They got to deal with that part. Then they got to also deal with putting the culture of their parents and the Islamic understandings, the classical understandings, putting that into context with the real dynamics of the societies they live in. In my case, United States of America. You know, in you guys' case, Holland or the city of Amsterdam. How do we put Islam into focus? And how do we connect Islam, or how do we practice our Islam without causing no kind of aggravation to the society that we live in and adding value to them? How do we do that? You can't just pick up the Quran and read it and read about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ at that time. You can't just take that, read that, and just understand how to put it into context. You know, if I get a brand new car, somebody gave it to me, they got to give me a manual. I also got to have a driver's license, and better for me to have also a GPS. So all these things help me put the idea of driving into context for the place that I'm in. The same thing with the Quran, same thing with following the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sheikh Ahmed, he did that. He did the primary job. Myself and other people who, like myself, some of them reverts and others, Muslims who are second and third and fourth generation Muslims, we have been trying to travel around the world or within our given societies and remove misconceptions and distortions about Islam and Muslims. And on Thursday night, I spoke about the characteristics or the symptoms that we carry, which I identified as which I called it an identity crisis. So that's what I'm trying to do now, to correct this this condition that we have as Muslims. And this condition is not just Muslims that's living in the West. You know, there's an identity crisis with the last 2 generations of Muslims all over the world. We can see it in the different social characteristics and issues and things that Muslims are going through, regardless of whether they are being oppressed or regardless of whether It is that they are distorting Islam themselves, and we have to start a discussion about that. And before you start a discussion, a genuine discussion, you can't be in denial. You know, and I mentioned to the audience, I think that night, that the denial is not a river in Egypt. So, you know, you can't be in denial about an issue, a condition that we are going through. And so that's what I tried to touch upon, and I hope that I'll be get the opportunity to come back and discuss with people what they thought about that presentation and how we might be able to not only recognize the condition, but what can we do to treat the condition and do what we're supposed to do, and that is add value to the society where we are and clean the windows whom we are so that people can see Islam, and then make sure that we fulfill our responsibility in this generation to the society where we live at, to make sure that they understand the basic objective of Islam, and that is to call people towards that there's none to be worshipped except Allah, Almighty God, and that the best example for humanity in terms of behavior is Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And that has to be determined by people as they read and evaluate. It's not a foregone conclusion for non-Muslims. It is for us, but it's not for non-Muslims. So our job is to clarify that part and then find the way to compete, to live in this society, engage with people, tolerate what we disagree with, but at the same token make a profound investment, a profound commitment to the society so that even if people disagree with what we believe in, they still find benefit from us and they don't have no claim against us that we're causing some harm in the society. Now this is important. They don't have to agree with us, but they should not have any genuine complaint that we cause an aggravation in the society or we don't even fit. The Prophet ﷺ never did that. So first of all, I want to thank you guys for like giving me a good send-off, and you know, we're here sitting at this Park Plaza Hotel at the generosity of the IPCI, and we'll be catching a flight hopefully. So I want to just say to your audience, I took this 5 or 10 minutes to answer your question because that was like a key question, and I just turn it back over to yourself now.
Thank you so much. Finally, to bring our interview to to the end, you've been here for 10 years ago. You know, since 10 years ago, and it seems like you're kind of coming back. How do you feel coming back to Holland? Or how do you feel to be back in Holland and continue your humanitarian sort of work?
Well, first, maybe the viewers should keep in mind historically that this is Amsterdam, but originally the city that I was born in was called New Amsterdam. But when the Duke of York, you understand me, sort of was put as having, how can you say, like, the Duke of York purchased an area, or he had command of an area. Well, New Amsterdam was a part of that area. And inside of New Amsterdam, there's an area called Haarlem. So now we can see that if I was born in Haarlem, New York, which used to be New Amsterdam, and I'm here now in Amsterdam, and the two cities have a lot of familiarity, similarity. The two cities have a lot of similarity. So this is written by Allah. This is, in some way this was designed where it wasn't my choice or your choice, or this was written. So I think I have what do they call it? They call it when you have a relationship with something that seems to be natural. I have a chemistry, a natural chemistry with the Muslims of Holland and with this general structure of the society at the same token. Expressive, tolerant, open-minded, intellectual, well-developed society that has a lot of impact on different places in terms of design and in terms of structure and building and civilization. And as a new Muslim, I feel very honored that I'm able to relate to the Muslims of Holland and maybe add value to them, especially the young people. You know, as we can see that in sitting here, there's no old people sitting here. And I don't know why the old people, they're not sitting here. But it just happens to be that young people are responding more to my particular message, maybe than the older people. There might be some social, psychological reason for that, and, but we won't go into that part of it. But I think that so long as this government and this society feels that I deserve to enjoy the privileges that they offer to people who come here is, to visit. And maybe I should also mention here to you that I had a company here. I mean, I lived here for about a year. Is it correct?
You're right.
You know, so I had an address, I had a company. I mean, I went through the whole, what do they call it, due diligence to set up a company, and spent a year here. So I think anyone that spends a year someplace, I didn't get to learn too much Dutch, but anyone that spends a year sort of knows the society, and Holland has a special place in my heart or in my mind. And so I think if we're talking about Europe or America, like I was born in New Amsterdam or New York, probably when I come to Europe, Amsterdam is probably like almost like a second home. I have to keep London in mind because, you know, that's where I have family and another, what do you call it, experience. But Amsterdam has a special place in my life and in my mind, and that's probably the best answer I can give you in terms of would I be looking forward to coming back here or doing more work here if Allah makes it possible and the Muslims facilitate it. It's probably a no-brainer.
You'll be living in, you know, you'll be living back to the United States of America in a few hours from
Yes.
now. What are you going to leave us with, and how do you bid us a farewell? You know.
Well, you know, to be honest, I think in this particular interview, what I would say is that anyone can contact yourself or any one of the Sky team that we have here in Amsterdam. You can give them your contact numbers, and we can make available to people a copy of a link for the lecture that we did on Thursday. We can give them also a link where they can take benefit of the special session that we did last night. And then as far as this interview is concerned, they will have that. So I think those three things are probably enough as like a lasting or what I would like to say to the people of Holland. I'd just like to say that I'm grateful to have the opportunity to come to a country like this and to a city like this and deliver a message to the general public. And then after that, have a sit down with some, you know, young Muslims and give them sort of like my perspective as a senior Muslim. And I want to thank yourself and Sajjad and our cameraman Patrick for having, you know, sponsoring this small session here. And I thank Almighty Allah for the health and the opportunity for this visit. And if it is the will of Allah, and as things that we talked about, maybe in the next 2 months or 3 months, we'll be planning something else and see if we can bring back to life, rejuvenate the platform of Sky Views that you did here. And if you recall, I mean, I do recall,
Thank you.
the first broadcast that we did with Sky Views was right down here, in the not here, but in the central.
Right.
You remember that?
You're right.
So I look forward, maybe we can come back to that and we say Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, and I turn back over to you, brother.
Dear viewers, I think you heard it from, they said if you want to hear the lyrics and the sound of music, you listen to the musician himself. So I wouldn't talk too much. It's been a wonderful having time with our Sheikh Khalid Hussein and his views, Sky Views. You can, Google him, you can follow him on YouTube, and hopefully you'll get some benefit, and he will inspire you. Hope to see you some other time. God willing. Thank you very much for watching. Me and my crew, Sky Group team here in Amsterdam, wish you a very blessed and wonderful day, and until some other time again. Assalamu alaikum. Goodbye. Bye.